Wurrzag, the great green prophet. Talk about a thinker, a philosopher, and a spiritual leader, a great unifier of his time for his people, with his advisors being the twin gods that might have possibly birthed his species, that his species worship, with an endless drive to improve the quality of life for his people, never stopping until the entirety of orc culture was brought up to a better ease of life. For this and many other reasons, Wurrzag is not only my favorite orc in Warhammer Fantasy, but also my favorite character in the whole darn setting. Being a guy who can get the most vicious, biggest, and baddest war bosses to come to some sort of agreement to help each other, instead of fighting each other on sight, with diplomacy actually being an option for Wurrzag with his kind. In this video, we're going to be going over the history of Wurrzag and what he got up to in Warhammer Fantasy. We're going to be combining together his stories from his current iteration and previous iteration, because Wurrzag in the rewrite has a lot less information about himself that's written, and can only be connected with his origin story in the 6th edition, with some things being different. And when there are discrepancies between the two stories, I'll make sure to tell you in the end of the video. Wurrzag Ur-Ura-Zabu, that took me like 4 or 5 tries, was an average savage orc and part of the Bone-Nosed tribe. When Wurrzag was young, the shaman of the Bone-Nosed tribe, Old Wizbag, was jealous of up-and-coming orcs with their psychic or magical powers. Then one day, Wurrzag, overflowing with Wa energy, floating in the air with energy spilling out of his eyes with green lightning crackling around him, made Old Wizbag overreact a little bit, where he saw the pure amount of energy emanating from the young orc and decided that he and the tribe were going to eat Wurrzag for his foolishness, marinating him in all sorts of good tasty things, until Wurrzag entered a trance and spouted off a story about a long time ago. Before everything, where the wizardmen went and built a bunch of pyramids to keep all the orcs away from them. This scared some of the orcs, so instead of being eaten, he was thrown into an overgrown jungle maze that was giant and large. When Wurrzag awoke, he was panicked, thinking about the various monsters lurking in the jungle thicket, and how he could easily become food for them instead. Eventually, the panic did start to wash away when he realized no monsters were there to eat him. The green lightning might have scared away the animals who were either not there or not interested in Wurrzag, but it's commonly agreed upon that this was Gork and Mork's design. Years passed in this jungle, and Wurrzag became one with the beasts of the jungle, with them being his guards. He had grown from a young orc to a much more brutal, muscly one, and he was still plagued by visions, where he would spend days either incapacitated with him wandering around through the trees, or even sleepwalking, with the visions growing more and more out of control, until both of the moons above the known world were out, and he was led out of the jungle by these visions. He awoke in the square of some destroyed, destitute orc settlement, where he searched through the ruins with wall painting. There was one building barely left standing, where he fell through the floor, being knocked unconscious. When he woke up, he saw a skeleton that had a bonewood mask with it. He adorned it, and then he was teleported into a hall with torches, them lit and blazing, furs, and a throne with a glowing green figure appearing in front of him that said, "Yo, what's good, Wurrzag? Gork and Mork got a new mission for you. It's gonna be pretty darn cool. You gotta find the Chosen One, the once and future Git, the mythical grandson that would lead all of orc kind to victory against their enemies before falling in battle at the end of the world." So, basically, he's a big deal. Bring him to this exact location, Wurrzag. I iterate again, this exact location. Or maybe not, this part's gonna kind of be retconned. Wurrzag went and finally said something, practically picking up his slack jaw off of the floor to finally ask, "Wait a minute, you want me to bring him here, or maybe not here, and just be with him?" The apparition said back, "Yeah, dude, of course. That's what we want. That's what we're here for. Also, take this mask for free just because I love you so much. Go out and get him, champ." So Wurrzag went back to his old clan, the Bone-Nosed tribe. Now, a larger, hardy orc found Wizbag and used his new magics to turn Wizbag into a squig. A squig he decided to bring with him that was filled with all kinds of uncanny Wa energy magic stuff. He then told everybody that he was going to find the one true Git and unite all the orc tribes together, and went off. His first act was actually to go help these Bone Noses, where they went to the nearest lizard city's ruins and developed the land by using rubble near their pyramids to erect idols of Gork and Mork, making it so the tribe had Gork and Mork watching over them, with their luck eventually turning. making it so they were once again good and prosperous. Wurrzag then moseyed on over to the land of the dead and helped out the Spotted Skulls tribe, where he was given a cool little bonewood staff that had lots and lots of wah energy in it. So he let the squig that he turned old Whizzbag into perch on top of it to get even more and more power. More effigies were erected in the name of Gork and Mork, with him being given a war boar named Spleenrippa that he uses as a mount. Talking with other orc shamans and bringing the ideas of finding the once and future Git and uniting the orc tribes together to cover the world in a great green tide. And despite most of what is seen in the biggest piece of Warhammer fantasy media like ever, Warhammer Total War, Wurrzag is not some warlord that leads a whole army on his own. Usually, he would have a small entourage of loyal savage orcs at best that would travel with, and sometimes he would be completely alone. He would much more be like akin to a hero wizard unit in the game, being able to detach himself from armies and doing his own stuff sometimes. In lore, though, he has never been defeated in a battle, with him being really well known for turning enemy wizards into squigs, turning their own powers against them, and having some powerful war paint to put on his more tribal brethren. He also fights unlike most wizards too, because he often charges into combat with his dudes, chopping with his hand axe and casting spells at a close range. When the end times happened, Wurrzag realized that he wasn't just looking for the one true Git, but two true Gits. One true Git was the actual best fighting orc in the setting, Grimgor Ironhide, the Fist of Gork, and the Hand of Mork was Snarsnik, who was a conniving little goblin, who decided to do nothing and fight dwarves when the end times came around. Wurrzag almost got killed by Grimgor when they first met, but Grimgor decided not to, because when he lifted up his axe, Gork came down and flicked Grimgor on his head for being an idiot and trying to attack him, because Wurrzag was calling him a Git a little too much. They would fight alongside each other and take out the Chaos Dwarves. He also probably died at some point. You don't know when or how he dies, but it's a good guess that when the world literally blows up, he's probably done. Or he passes away with Grimgor fighting Archaon the Everchosen. Whichever you want to choose, really. It's never actually said concretely. And if you like what I'm talking about for Wurrzag, he's a leader in Warhammer Total War, where he comes with the first game for free. He doesn't turn as many people into squigs as you'd want, probably. Or, well, ever. That's just not an ability he can do. So he kinda sucks for that lore reason, but overall he's one of the cooler orc lords and deals a lot of damage with magic, making him a scary magic man to deal with on the battlefield. If you want to see a video on how to play Wurrzag, I made one on the first few turns that you can watch on this channel. Link right here on the top right. The main differences between Wurrzag and Old Lore versus New Lore are based off how he got his mask and some of the other stuff. And in the game, the nature of his squig and the status of it being alive or not, where in the game he just forgot to feed it and it's dead. In older versions of the lore, the Baleful Mask and the Bonewood Staff have more mysterious origins than the original lore, where they are found or given to Wurrzag by mysterious means through him meeting a stranger in a vision. Where in more modern lore, that doesn't really happen, and he loses a lot of depth because of that. He doesn't even get lost in a jungle for a while. He just almost gets eaten and then makes a recovery arc, with him turning Whizzbag into a squig almost instantly. In the lore of his more modern versions, he's a lot less burdened as somebody with powers to see the past, the future, and the present that sometimes just explodes with magic, which I think you're kind of missing out for orcs that are psychics, kind of, and are magically gifted, because that's part of the fun. They're gonna backfire sometime. Now he's just kind of an orc that uses magic sometimes whenever he gets in a bad bout, because Gork and Mork let magic fly out of his eyes and allow him to win every fight, which isn't really as cool. That's all I have for this video on Wurrzag, the wackiest, kookiest orc shaman that can do a little jig and a little dance on his warboar. And he's my favorite orc in Warhammer Fantasy, and the premier orc in Warhammer 40k is actually kind of a combination between Grimgor and Wurrzag, being a prophet, but also being the biggest and baddest out there. So tell me if I should make a video on that guy, Gazgul Mag Uruk Thraka. And this is probably one of my smaller videos. I blame that on the small amount of lore that I could get my hands on compared to some of the Warhammer 40k subjects or even Grimgor that I had, making it so I had to more dip into different pieces of source material that might sometimes not agree with each other. Well, I hope you guys liked it. Till next video, fellas!